and welcome to Talking Bottom. I'm Paul Tanter.
I'm Matt Brooks.
And I'm Ange Pearson.
And you join us at the start of a new adventure. We've gone in depth on Bottom across many episodes over several series. We celebrated Rik Mayall's greatest and most celebrated characters with our recent series, The Many Faces of Rik Mayall. But we do love diving deep into the very best of UK comedy, which just so happens often to be written by, or starring, or both, Rik Mayall and Ade Edmondson. So for the next 12 or so weeks, Talking Bottom will be talking the young ones. It seems only right, as it's very much the show that properly launched Rik and Ade all the way back on the 9th of November 1982, with characters that had already been playing similar versions of for years, and which would eventually evolve via Filthy Rich and Catflap into the Richie and Eddie we grew up loving on Bottom. Yes, they put in the work on stage at the Comedy Store, and yes, there was their early TV work on Boom Boom Out Go the Lights, The Comic Strip Presents, and Rik's work as Kevin Turvey. But the young ones put them on the map, and the show was a cultural phenomenon like no other. The young ones embraced a punk ethos and smashed its way onto TV, revolutionising what sitcoms were capable of and laying the foundations for the great comedies that followed in its footsteps. It featured the best bands of the day so it could have a bigger budget, but wove them into the story like they belonged. It ran for 2 series of 12 fantastic episodes and spawned a book, a hit single, and even a Sinclair Spectrum computer game.
That's such a terrible thing.
Over 40 years later, it's still heralded as one of the greatest sitcoms of all time and one of the few to warrant the expense of remastering the entire show on Blu-ray, which is the medium by which I personally revisited it. So, guys, we're here talking the young ones.
Yep. I have to say, I thought that was a fantastic intro, but I have to take umbrage with the fact that they wove in the bands to the plot. They were always so jarring to me.
Well,
they did better as the time went on, didn't they? Actually making it make sense within the episodes.
Yeah, the first one, like Paul Jackson talked about this on the Blu-ray commentary, and he said they got better with it as they went on. So I think people mainly remember Madness and Motorhead and other things, but and by that I mean I can't remember the other names of the other bands.
I'm a Zulu. I only remember because, really, I'm a Glaswegian right after.
Well, in the first one, it's 9 Below Zero, isn't it? Who are a little bit like the Jam. They sound a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of era?
I tell you why I didn't like it as a kid. I imagine they were almost contractually obliged to not make fun of the bands while they are there. They are saying like, "Oh, these are cool, aren't they? These are cool," but everyone else is lame. You know, they're putting fingers up to authority and stuff. They're making fun of Cliff Richard, even though Rik loves Cliff Richard. They never really make fun of the bands while they are there, do they?
Well, they have fun with Madness, don't they?
They have a lot of fun
interacting with Rik.
Yes, but Madness have the high. Yeah, they have the higher status, though, don't they?
Brought in as the kind of cool interlude, I think, aren't they? If they were trying to take the piss out of the bands, I don't think it would necessarily play that well. They certainly wouldn't get many more bands to come on this unknown show. Certainly for the pilot.
Well, I suppose they wouldn't know that they're going to get slagged off on the first series, and the second series, everyone would have wanted to be on anyway. We've been over this before, but for anyone who doesn't know, the reason why there are bands in it is because a bit of clever film work accounting by Paul Jackson. It was just the show
could qualify as
a variety. Yes, exactly. It got funded by the variety department instead of the comedy department, and that was a twofold bonus. It got more money, and it gave them 2 days to record it instead of the one which comedy's got.
Which is what they said. It was vital they had those 2 days in the studio for the amount of set pieces they were setting up and had to have done in front of the live studio audience.
I assumed that they would do the same thing that Ed By did in Bottom, which was, anything stunt-wise gets recorded the day before. But they didn't. I think they had so many of those weird inserts of, dancing vegetables and talking rats, that kind of thing. They needed the day before to do those because they took a long time to get right. But also they wanted all the stunts to be done in the studio in front of the audience. So like in this episode that we'll talk about,
when you say they, it's the writers because they come from the
writers and Paul Jackson, who was directing it and producing it. But so they wanted that stuff to be done in the studio, whereas actually later on when Rik and Ade were doing Bottom with Ed By directing it, they would do things like, okay, we'll record the stunts the day before and then we'll play them in to the studio,
because they were live performers. They'd never done a sitcom, they'd never been on telly and doing it, and they wanted the live audience reaction.
It's what they knew. It's exactly what they're used to, isn't it?
in situ are obviously going to be much bigger. The surprise is going to be much bigger, and it's much more impressive, isn't it?
And the performers will play off those laughs as well, and they'll do better, and they respond to new character.
In the room from it is incredible. It's palpable, isn't it? When Vyvyan enters, I mean, we'll go into the plot of the pilot episode, but the palpable laughter that comes from those surprises, like you couldn't conjure that up just from playing VT in the room. Have you been to studio recordings for any sitcoms?
Not for sitcoms. I have been to like Harry Hill's TV But not for a sitcom.
Over the years, and when it cuts to here's the bit on VT, like it's still obviously funny.
Does the energy drop?
It would be so much better. I can't even imagine how electric it would have been to have been in the room watching those stunts happen live.
As well, and like there's no Rik and Ade fans really in that audience, I'd imagine, right? And what the hell would they be expecting?
Yeah, they wouldn't have known what to expect whatsoever. This was a brand new show.
Speaking of brand new show, let's pretend there's a brand new audience for it. I imagine most people listening will be familiar with the young ones, but if someone wasn't, if they've just landed on planet Earth from an alien planet, how would you guys describe the young ones to them?
Okay, then, so can I use other examples of comedy to compare it to if they're an alien? Because obviously I would mention Python to get people in that kind of mindset. So I suppose Son of Python a little bit. But it's kind of like a punk rock reinterpretation of the classic sitcom, I think. A few people involved with Rik and Ade, Ben Elton himself has said that they're perceived as being like very anti the establishment before that, but that's not the case. They were students of it. They followed very closely Laurel and Hardy, Galton and Simpson stuff, and they loved it, but they put their own spin on it.
The clever thing about the young ones, which I don't think people necessarily, until they look back in hindsight, was that Rik and Ade and Ben Elton, obviously, and Lise Mayall and Nigel, and all of them were actually subverting what was expected of a half-hour sitcom. So you have to know that the biggest rule of comedy is you have to know the rules to break the rules. And I think Ben said that about Rik multiple times. Like, you have to know what the rules are, what the timing is you need to be hitting, in order to then subvert it and play with it and it work. I
think the house being demolished as the plot is quite a sitcom staple, that sort of thing. Like, their safety net, their world is threatened. They all need to come together, overcome this.
But it's a bold move to actually
start
demolish
with that's the end episode. That's the end of a series plot, isn't it? Like the Biker Grove's going to be taken over or whatever.
The status quo that you're meant to reset at the end of every episode of a sitcom. They no longer have a house by the end. It's a very, I mean, we've mentioned cartoon violence over and over, haven't we? Talking about Bottom. It's such an explosive. I mean, obviously they didn't have the budget to do an explosive ending in that way, but you
could compare it to an acid trip as well as some of the weird cutaways they have.
There's a lot of surreal stuff, isn't there? There's a lot of surreal things, some of which is just a bit weird.
I think more like rather than acid. I don't know. I mean, I've never taken acid, but I think it's more like taking weed, like that kind of skewed view, and you sort of not necessarily observing things in the exact same kind of time frame.
Yeah, it's more like rubber, whatever. Like it bends and distorts conventions, but then snaps back to it as well. The house, I cringe when I begin to say this, but the house very much is a character as well.
I love it when people say that.
Yeah,
we had to say it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you guys have both said that they knew the rules and how to break them, because I found to be a bit of a theme when the makers talked about it, was that they were kind of making up as they went along. It's been mentioned that the first series, all the episodes play out in a very linear way because the writers didn't know that you could jump in time when you're writing something. So that's why in the second series they move things around. It's sort of been said that they were kind of just feeling their way as they went along. There was a note to Paul Jackson from, I'm not exactly sure who Ian Davidson is in the BBC, but he's obviously received the script and is giving his feedback on it. And you mentioned the news that the house is going to be demolished. That's what people would normally call the inciting incident. And he says, since this isn't a sketch show, I do think that some trace of a story, in brackets, a continuing interest, must emerge sooner than page 39. The council are going to knock the house down. This may also help answer my other basic objection. If the situation, this is interesting, he says this, If the situation is crazy and the characters are all crazy, that's one crazy too many. We need one recognisable element at least. Have the writers/cast faced up to the fact that your set will be realistic? Imagination is the stuff of theatre, but television makes bed-sitting rooms shockingly real and mundane. Again, this uneasiness of mine might be answered by the earlier introduction of the story.
So this was before it was filmed, wasn't it? That feedback.
This was 31st December 1981, so this was before the pilot had been
just
shot.
Before
Do you think it's reading on the yellow lined paper script with coffee stains and everything? That's what the rumour is.
It is very good that you brought that up, Paul, that obviously what we're saying is that in hindsight is, Rick knew the rules and how to break them. But actually, 21-year-old Ben Elton and therefore 23-year-old Rik, what they knew was how to play, Rik certainly had to play with the live form of entertainment, but I think what they mean by that is they'd watched enough sitcom in order to want to do something different, in order to subvert it. They knew the characters, they knew what they wanted to put on, and they wanted to be big and bold and outrageous. I think that is where it jars for someone who obviously was used to working with the likes of Terry and June and The Good Life, but I think the beautiful thing about it is that they did say, they told them, write what you want to write. We'll worry about how to film it. I think that's how Paul actually put it to them, wasn't it? It was don't shrink your imagination. Write what you think's funny, and we will make it work. That was the magic.
On the commentary as well, he backs that up with the story of the VFX guys, John Brace and Dave Hubbard, who were very new and green and enthusiastic and were like, I'll do it. Like they almost didn't know how to say no. Like, you write it and we'll figure it out.
They were all excited by the prospect of having a half-hour sitcom. It was the pilot at that point, wasn't it? You're like, we're going to give this the biggest, best go we can give it. But one fascinating thing that I just want to drop in, did you know Ben Elton literally wrote it in a night? In his autobiography. Right, okay. I'm reading it at the moment.
Was that a rewriting? Was that rewriting Rik and Lisa's? No.
Nope. Right, so I urge everyone, if you haven't listened or read Ben's autobiography, I'm still not even halfway through. It's a huge tome, but it's fantastic to listen to it on Audible. Not that I'm advertising that, but hearing Ben's words, describing it all is fantastic. Rik rang Ben Elton up when they were both living in London just after Ben had graduated, and Rik had been in London a couple of years. Met with him and Lisa in the pub. They said, Paul Jackson has said, if you give us a comedy idea, I'll pitch it and we'll get you a pilot, but we need the idea. Rik had the idea that he wanted it to be called The Young Ones. He wanted his character, Rik, to be very much his Rik the Poet character, a fan of Cliff Richard. So immediately he just had the joke that it was going to be called The Young Ones. Yeah. And asked Ben, you're the writer, you've written loads of plays, write us, you're going to write us a sitcom. Come on, farty. He went home and he wrote Demolition.
I heard the story
one night, and what I also love, not to spoil this, but the next morning Ben rang Rik and said, "I've got the first draft of the script, Rik," and Rik replied, "What took you so bloody long? Come round here and show it to me now." Like the next morning, how amazing is that? How prolific!
I'd heard a story that they bumped into Ben Elton at a pub. And he hadn't seen him for a little while, and then he mentions, "Oh, yeah, we've got this thing."
I think, from Ben's perspective, he remembers Rik ringing him and saying, "Come and meet me in the pub." Right. I think they hadn't seen each other for a little while.
We should make clear, obviously, that although Ben Elton very prolifically, a great prolific writer at the time, brilliantly wrote it in one night. The genesis of the show was Rik Mayall and Lise Mayall had formed the idea earlier before then, taken it to Paul Jackson, who'd said, "I'll get you some money to develop it." They brought Ben on as a writer.
Exactly. So they were meant to be kind of creative.
Wasn't it a showcase of pre-existing characters, kind of?
Exactly. The idea was kind of, so there was 20th Century Coyote, that was Rik and Ade in the comic strip, and they were doing characters like the Dangerous Brothers. Rik was also doing his Rik the Poet. Meanwhile, there was The Outer Limits, which was Peter Richardson and Nigel Planer who were doing their show. And there was lots of other comic on at the Comedy Store doing their stuff.
Not everyone will know this. Peter Richardson was originally going to be Mike. Mike was created / written for him, sort of. And then the story goes he fell out with Paul Jackson, who then didn't want to work with him. Yeah. So then they auditioned for Mike, and Mike is played by Christopher Ryan, who is an actor, not a comedian.
Yeah.
And you very much notice that he doesn't have the same back and forth with them because he's not done all this stage work.
Yeah.
So the idea was to get these sort of double acts into this house, but in a way that all these guys had done Boom Boom Out Go the Lights, but they felt that it hadn't really worked. It hadn't really translated well into the final edit that went out on TV, and they wanted to work out a way How can we capture the magic of these guys' comedy, of their double acts? So the characters that they went with Rik had done Rik the poet on screen, and you see in the first episode, the pilot, that's almost exactly that character.
Yeah, he's
down
not
to the
quite
head.
Rik, is he? He is Rik the poet in this one.
The Vyvyan character is kind of based on Adrian Dangerous. He's kind of got that sort of, he'll headbutt anything, and he's quite violent.
Now the punk element of it hadn't been something on stage before. This is kind of a creation for the young ones more, just like a reskin of him as well. Now Lise Mayall
would be the fourth student, basically.
Yeah, Lise Mayall corrects a lot of us who we all call him the punk, and she says he's not meant to be a punk. He's meant to have just taken on things from subcultures that are violent. And he's like, I like this, because he's got very metal on the back of his jacket or his waistcoat, whatever. Denim thing,
Neil was Neil the hippie, who had been a character, and when he performed on stage, the Peter Richardson character had been a sort of quite cool guy who hung around with the hippie, I believe, and that was essentially what Mike was going to be. But Paul Jackson talked about in the book, or is quoted in the book, "Didn't You Kill My Mother-in-Law?" saying that Christopher Ryan's Mike, they didn't really have a fully formed character for him, so they tried to hint early on. They tried to make him a bit mysterious. Is he a mafiosi? Like that's why he's always like, "Oh, did anyone call for me?" or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then by the time the second episode comes along, they've sort of changed him into a bit of he's just sort of faking it.
Now I think
that's it. I think it's that Mike the cool person idea was the conceit, that he's the cool person, but he's not cool because he says that he's cool. So I believe it was the Mike the cool person idea, wasn't it? That he was uncool because he was always saying how cool he was.
Right, okay.
In this episode, you see him sort of like splaying... Oh, is it in... Hang on.
No, it's the second one you're thinking.
Sorry. Yeah. If by the second episode, he's like hanging bras around his room and everything.
Yeah, it was very Richie, that, isn't it?
Yeah,
with
exactly.
With a literal sex doll.
If he was
uncool,
if he was cool, he wouldn't be hanging out with these guys.
Exactly. And also, isn't he a graduate? So in the very opening credits, you've got everyone else in, and they're studying. Whereas Mike's
banged into money, isn't he?
His graduate gear, isn't he? So he's actually still living in this student house, even though he's left.
So
you're right. What? I never put that together.
And yet, so Paul Jackson said in the audio commentary for the opening episode that they wanted to kind of give the background to the students in the opening credits, and they did it in a very cool way, just with a few pictures. Rick's a sociology student, Viv is a medical student, Neil's a hippie, and you're right. I'd never picked up on that before. Mike has already graduated, and I do that with inverted commas on my fingers that you can't see, in that he's bought his degree, hasn't he? So he's already out of university. He's got it. Yeah,
exactly.
Maybe he's doing
older.
a doctorate now.
He's Matthew McConaughey in Dazed and Confused, hanging around while everyone stays the same age.
And flagging around the place, being the cool person above, like these like sort of second year, you imagine, if they're no longer in halls.
The guy who went back to uni after graduating just so he could be the coolest guy.
Yeah, I know everything because I've already been here.
Yeah.
And now you do get the sense that Mike doesn't really know the rest of them, don't you?
Yeah, I was back here in the cool days, Cool Britannia, 4 weddings.
Like, how have they ended up together as this ensemble? Do you know what I mean? Like,
through
how is Mike
student housing, isn't it? I think
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, I'm not going to harp on too much about Ben's autobiography, but he does talk about how obviously he was like a farty fresher, wasn't he? So he was 3 years behind Rik and Ade, and he moved into the house that Rik and Ade had shared in the second year.
Yeah.
And he was in it the year after them. He said if there was ever a prototype for the young one's house, it was that house. That was the house where Ade had apparently ridden a motorbike up the stairs inside. And it was just a real kind of, they smoked weed and hung out. And presumably there was a few hippie types that Ben encountered. He got evicted from one of his old houses because he wasn't health food focused enough. So I think the lentils and all that is definitely there in Ben's writing for that.
Now Mike's outfit is noticeably different in this one. He's looks like he's fresh from the golf course, doesn't it? He's in a suit from episode 2 onwards. Now, I think maybe they didn't put him in a suit this time because that'd be too close to Rik.
I think
he's got a tie on in this one.
Maybe. I think there were things they refined once they... in a second, we should talk about how the pilot progressed to the series. But once they got the series, they refined things like the Rik character became uglier, really. Rik in the pilot is actually really quite dashing and handsome.
They add spots, don't they? And that was all Rik. Rik wanted there to be more spots. They wanted them to be ugly.
Vyvyan's got a lot of spots in the pilot, I noticed, but Rik doesn't.
Yeah. Neil, the character, they lose his... him wanting to kill himself was supposed to be a continual thing that was going to go through the whole series. They dropped that after the first episode. So obviously things get refined a little bit.
There are a couple of other little suicide references, but it certainly is not completely prevalent, and it does completely go by series 2.
I think it was part of the Neil, the hippie character on stage, I think. So it was very much part of his character from the stage show, and then obviously they had to update it and move him on because it would have been a pretty crap joke throughout the series. To be just continuing.
If you pardon the pun, it was not even a pun, but it is quite heavy to talk about suicide in a comedy.
It's almost like the paranoid android, isn't it? It's that depressive character, which they never lose with Neil. He's always very, it's me, it's Eeyore, isn't it?
Like, it doesn't bring down the tone. It's always funny when he's mentioned,
you sympathise with him, don't you? But you never believe he's going to actually do it.
I remember we said to Ed Bye, and we talk about it in our book, Talking Bottom, A Guide to the Cult Sitcom.
What's that called again?
Talking Bottom, A Guide to the Cult Sitcom.
Where's that available?
In all good bookshops and on Amazon. We talked about how Bottom starts with a guy, faking a suicide by sticking his head in a gas oven, and how it was like quite an interesting and brave thing for a sitcom. I'd completely forgotten, to be honest, that's how Neil opened The Young Ones. But he means it as well. He's actually trying to do it. It's only the fact that the oven is so disgusting that you can't go through with it.
It's not the opening shot, to get pedantic, but yes, it's the first scene. It starts with Rik dancing to The Young Ones. Now, who sings that? Is it all the cast? I can only recognise Rick's voice in that.
Ultimately, when they sang it for the theme tune, it was all of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know. We haven't touched upon their silhouettes completely, but I do want to just say, I think the problem with Mike is there isn't a particular silhouette for Mike, is there? You know how you conjure up Rick the Poet,
sunglasses and suit,
you conjure up Neil the hippie.
Yeah.
Whereas because Mike wasn't necessarily always in that same outfit, that's I think also part of the problem with Mike as a character, isn't it? It's like he changes. He's almost a chameleon.
Have you
depending on what voice of reason or whatever little, obviously he becomes like a fascist dictator in oil, doesn't it? And all that. It doesn't ground him. Whereas Rick and everyone, they do change outfits.
Now,
they never really lose their inner
sometimes he's actually is connected and does know these people, but I always thought of him as a fantasist, really, and he's full of shit with all this stuff. Like the guy with the lisp phone, he's like having some sort of weird flight of fancy thing.
Yeah, it's interesting they had to audition for Mike, isn't it? I think that's the other thing. Like all the rest of them had honed their characters. I know obviously Vyvyan wasn't Ade's character as such, but there was an essence of Adrian Dangerous there. And that is, I think Christopher Ryan came in and took on a pretty big job, didn't he? I think we've said this before, like what a hard job to sort of come in with all these like live performers and try and match the bar.
Yeah.
Not an easy thing to do at all.
And I think with what he had, he did a great job with it. I think Paul Jackson acknowledges that. Everyone knows it was a difficult task because you're taking over from someone else. Everyone else is playing characters that they've been playing already, and they're sort of kind of fully formed, or at least they have an idea about them. And you're kind of presented with a bit of a blank slate. Also, Mike he doesn't always have the funniest lines, really.
Well, he kind of has the lame puns and stuff, doesn't he?
He's the straight man, really, isn't he?
Yeah, and I do wonder, obviously in an alternate universe, if it had been Peter Richardson, would that character have played 1,000 times better? We'll never know, will we? But he would have known the character inside out. And, Ben apparently did chat to him about the character when he was writing like the second episodes and moving on from that. And it was just this kind of, he's cool, but he's not cool. That was the main comedy conceit, and there's not a lot of places to go with that. He's not he's not 3D, is he?
No. So you mentioned Peter Richardson there, and he, in a way, he was instrumental in the Young Ones getting a full series, wasn't he?
Yep.
Because do you think he's furious about?
I think he's made his peace with it. I think he likes being the creator of the TV version of the comic strip presents.
Yeah, I mean that in itself is an incredible thing. It's not like all the Young Ones versus it in terms of how you'd feel creatively. I don't think. I think he's probably very, very glad that he did what he did.
So what happened?
So let's talk about that. So Young Ones gets a pilot.
Yep, it gets made.
They
gets
shoot
shot.
it. Doesn't get a great reaction. It gets shelved by the BBC. They don't want it. They don't really understand it. The head of programme planning at BBC Two, Mr. Keith Clement, in response to Paul Jackson sending him the script for the pilot, replied, Paul, thank you very much for letting me see this script. It's certainly different. If you pull this one off, my estimation of you will go even higher. That's it.
Okay, that's quite nice. A guy called John Davis said to Robin Nash, who was Paul Jackson's boss at the time, said, "Oh, don't worry, I've got bigger failures than that in my vault. Don't worry, you'll never hear any more about it. Don't worry, I'm not going to hold it against you." It was shelved in the vault, whatever that means, for about a year.
Yeah, they reckon about a year. I think it was written, 1981 time? Just after, I think it was early 1981.
I think it was shot January 1982. Is
that about how long it took them to shoot it then? Okay, so the writing process would have been, and then from it being shot in January 1982, it was actually only shelved then until that summer, when they knew about the Channel 4 launch and the comic strip being the big thing. That had been obviously announced as happening in the autumn.
So the BBC bigwigs see this and say, these are those guys in that pilot we've got.
Yeah, in the summer they said, let's dust off that pilot and can you get us 5 more episodes, please?
As quickly as well. I believe,
next week.
So they were asked, I think they asked for, it was what? When did Channel 4 go out? When did it?
2nd of November 1982 is the launch of Channel 4.
And as we know, the young ones went out on
9th of November.
The 9th of November 1982. So it was literally a week in it. So, but they planned it, obviously TV scheduling. It wasn't like, the comic strip went out and then
shoot it in a week.
It was the summer before.
It was because I remember they were given the deadline for the scripts of the 1st of July 1982, and I think it was a month that began with them, so it must have been March. It was either February or March when they were told we want 5 episodes, we want 5 more scripts.
Right.
So they had about a month per script to write it.
It's because the show, The Young Ones, is so character centric that the plot's almost secondary. There's a plot that is nothing happening. So I think that is maybe how they could write them so quickly, because the plot isn't the most important part of these scripts coming out. They know these characters and they can, for want of a better word, churn them out.
Yeah. But the BBC still didn't quite get it, did it? And is it famously, is this well known? The writers were asked to kind of submit a justification for the show. So they ended up writing an essay, so kind of trying to explain the show to the BBC.
I never know, was this for the series getting made, or was this trying to save the pilot?
I'm assuming it was once the pilot was made and the powers that be at the BBC had watched it and said, we don't know about this, we're not sure about it. I think that's when Rik, Lisa and Ben were tasked by Paul, write an essay explaining what's happening, explaining what you... actually, you know what? No, sorry, it was...
Was it between series 1 and 2?
It was, because the essay references people misunderstanding Vyvyan as they say fucking the floor, which he wasn't. He was doing press-ups.
I think it was between series 1 and 2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But that's incredible because it was such a hit. We need to... So basically, if anyone hasn't listened to our previous episodes on Rik the Poet, and I think we did talk about it on a couple of the Talking Bottom episodes, we when we were doing our research for the book, Paul, you went to the BBC archive, and that's where you found this essay that Rik, Lisa and Ben had all signed. We don't know exactly whose voice had written what.
There's bits scribbled out and edited with each other, like all talking over each other like we do.
Exactly. And I think maybe a little bit further down the line we might read out more bits of it. I think we have quoted bits of it, haven't we, previously?
Bits of it before.
And it is a fascinating, like how, as young as they were, they knew exactly what they wanted out of their comedy, and they knew how to argue it as well. I think a lot of younger people might have shied away and been like, they absolutely defended it.
They argue cartoon violence.
So right.
Yeah.
The point was that these were despicable characters. You weren't meant to like any of the characters. They were trying something new.
The finger being cut off isn't horrific, and it's fine the next scene, so therefore it's justifiable, like Tom and Jerry.
And the fact that they have to justify this with an essay, it's difficult for us to comprehend this now. And again, this is something Paul Jackson mentions in one of the audio commentaries, when he says it's easy for younger people who are used to the state of TV as it is now, to not realise how revolutionary this show was. No one had ever done shows where the main characters hated each other before, and where they punched each other on camera in a sitcom.
In that violent a way. In that cartoonish violent a way. I mean, like, we'll have to always bring up Steptoe and Son. There is a lot of violence in Steptoe and Son.
Do they smack each other?
They do. Yeah. Not in as crazy a way as like Richie and Eddie, but there are often like moments in the yard where Harold is chasing his dad round with and he's like, I'm gonna kill you, and it is violent, but it's it's on the right side of violence, and that you never really think that he's going to kill him. But it's them having this horrible tension back and forth, but in that way, it had been years since that kind of thing had been on telly, hadn't it?
Yeah.
Because it had moved into this 70s kind of style sitcom, which was a little bit more middle class.
It was all, whoops, there go my trousers, the vicar's coming round.
They have that pastiche, the joke thing on the telly, don't they, in the Young Ones? Oh, crikey.
Yeah, and, the vicar's come around for tea.
And his trousers are dropped and the dog's in the room and all.
And even later on, literally tearing down The Good Life in one of the episodes with Vyvyan railing against it.
Now,
they said they said afterwards that they didn't feel that they wanted to necessarily pick on The Good Life, and I think they said, why were you so horrible about it? It's like, well, it was Vyvyan being horrible about you, not necessarily Ade or Rik, but it was that was a show that epitomised it's so bloody nice, and those shows are great, aren't they, in their own way? They are funny, they are entertaining, but the young ones crashed onto the TV. And we've talked about how it's taken us this long. We should say it's taken us this long to look at the young ones, because Bottom is the one that we grew up with.
Well,
I wish I'd grown up in a time where the young ones was the first thing that you did see Rik and Ade do in many ways. I wish I knew what that felt like.
Well, I'd be interested to know when, do you recall the first time you saw the young ones?
Very much so, yeah.
What does it mean to you? Because for me, it was something that I was aware of through like my parents and my older brother watching it, but it wasn't something I was into at the time. It wasn't until later on when I started getting into the work of Rik and Ade properly. I then like rewatched it on VHS.
How old do you reckon you were when you first watched it?
Do you know what?
Then?
I would have seen it in like the late 80s, so like 7, 8, 9 or whatever, but it wasn't until I started watching Bottom and then I thought I'm going to revisit this work from these other guys. I remember being very young and being grossed out by Neil sneezing in a bag and thinking that's disgusting because he's getting covered in snot.
Yeah.
And so like things like
that's
that just
a minor part
of
it as well.
No. And yet Bottom made you like, it's interesting, isn't it? I don't think I was sat there, straightening my tyres like a 9-10-year-old thinking, oh well, of course the characterisation of Richie and Eddie is so much more well-rounded in Bottom, but I think like they had matured by Bottom and there's a very different dynamic going on between Richie and Eddie than there is between the ensemble cast of the young ones. It's a very, very similar but different show, isn't it? Like the anarchy's all there and the violence and the back and forth and like it's fucking hilarious. But I do think Bottom spoke to us, I think, as children more than like children would like the young ones. I think it's teenagers that like the young ones, isn't it?
Do you recall the first time you saw it?
I think I've said before, I was round at my mate's house, and because I did love Rik Mayall, I think I probably I still do talk about Rik quite a lot. And I was talking about maybe Bottom or maybe Grim Tales or whatever it was. And my mate's dad said, oh, if you like Rik Mayall, have you watched the young ones? And I'd never even heard of it. I think I must have been around sort of like 11 or 12. Yeah. Still like I wasn't in the teenage. I might have even still been 10 and at primary school.
That man's a hero for doing that, because you were too young, which is the right age.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My mate Georgie's dad, because he'd grown up with it and he was very much, I'll put it on, and I know it was taped off the telly and I'm pretty sure it was oil. I'm pretty sure it was oil. I just got this vague memory of it being whatever the first thing that would have been on the tape that we put on and we watched, and it was almost too much. It was like, what is this? Yeah. And of course, I then didn't have that tape. So when I left my mate's house, I then didn't rewatch.
And you've got a weird, distorted memory of it for a while, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was just like, oh, that was like a weird thing that Rik was in, and he looked younger, and it was all just very madcap. I remember laughing. I do remember laughing, but I didn't have it to then watch. And I don't know when it was beyond then that I actually then got my hands on. But I think it was the DVD. I think it was whenever the young ones came out.
The DVD, not the VHS.
Nope. I never had the VHS.
That's
which is
crazy
weird,
to me.
Because my brother liked Bottom as well. He was older than me. But the young ones had just passed us by.
Remember how like they used to put out VHSs and you'd only get 3 episodes on one cassette.
Yes.
We had one of them, so I had half of one of the series.
Right.
So we would watch those episodes, so I was familiar with those ones, but not the others, which I don't know whether that skewed it or anything like that. But it wasn't till later on.
I think what I might have seen was a rerun on telly of the University Challenge episode, because that's the one that I think obviously stands out for a lot of people anyway. But I really, really, really remember watching that. I think I'd rewatched that a lot more than the others. So that's the one that stands out to me. It's like the first young ones that I watched and really, really laughed at.
I think that was my sort of re-entry episode in that, so watching that, I mean, you've got recognisable actors playing the other roles. You're like, oh, it's Fry and Laurie.
For me, I was a young Bottom fan as well. My mum said, oh, yeah, you should check out the young ones. And we were on a...
Great parenting.
Yeah, those shit caravan holidays that you all seem to have in England, right? we were in the the boring working men's club type thing there, where you have another Coke. I'm like, I don't want another Coke. It was like the parents are several beers in, and found out that Young Ones was on TV that day. I used to go through the TV guide sometimes, and it was a weird little nerd, and found out it's on UK Gold today. We don't have that, and a friend that we'd made there had Sky in their caravan, and they just let me go into their caravan unsupervised to watch an episode of the Young Ones on my mum's recommendation. So I would have probably been about 12, 11, 12, I guess. And the episode I saw was the third one of series 1, boring, which is still probably my favourite one. I think that one has the best band being put into the plot, because the whole thing of that is, there's nothing on, there's nothing to do, and Madness happens to be playing down the local pub, and they just miss it, don't they? And they get there, like, what's going on? So it actually is, they actually are playing there in the world. Not sometimes it's kind of like a weird flight of fancy or whatever, it doesn't always make sense, but that one actually is happening. And I got it straight away. All the not knowing at the time, it's very Beckett with everything's so boring, we're waiting around, nothing to do, which is a huge staple in Rik and Ade's work. I remember liking Neil very much straight away. I'd never seen him before. Yeah, Neil, I think, is a huge standout of the young ones.
You can relate to Neil more than Mike, and you relate to Rik, like you relate to Vyvyan. I think that's another thing that I don't think I ever really related to Mike as well.
Neil is probably the most sympathetic character in that he's the one who's always getting put upon by the others.
It's an easy impression to do as well. I remember doing the impression as I got out of the caravan to my mum, and she's, that's very good.
When they remade the show in the US, they made a US pilot. The US producers apparently rang up Paul Jackson and said, look, we're having a bit of a problem with this. We don't know who the hero's supposed to be. We don't know who we're supposed to be rooting for. And he said, well, none of them. They're all unlikable characters. And and in the end, they all kind of agreed, well, Neil is probably
the least horrible.
At a stretch, he's your lead, for want of a better word.
He's the sympathetic character, isn't he? But he's not the hero, is he? You couldn't carry an entire show on his shoulders in the way that they wanted from an American sitcom. It's called Oh No, Not Them.
Yeah. It was a thing of legend for years, and there was no footage of it available anywhere until relatively recently, end of 2025. Nigel Planner put it out on his Patreon, so if you give him $4.99, you can go and watch a copy.
We're going to do an episode on it, aren't we? So we're not going to touch upon it now, because we've been talking around the pilot all episode already. And
should we get into the plot of this?
So much to say with terms of the historical background to the young ones, isn't there? And how it got made, and how very nearly this got shelved, and that was it. If it hadn't been for Channel 4 being watched, if it hadn't been for the comic strip being commissioned. There are so many things along the way that might have meant that we wouldn't be here talking about the young ones. We probably wouldn't have been talking about Bottom.
Now, there would be no Bottom without the young ones.
You don't. I mean, you can't absolutely say, can you? But it's very unrealistic to think that they would have given a sitcom to Rik and Ade, because they found it hard enough to convince them, even with the success of the young ones, to take a chance on Bottom. Yeah. So, it was because of the success of the young ones that they owe a lot to, isn't it?
And now I think it's time for a word from our sponsor.
At East End, we select the best from around the world to give you a taste as pure as gold. East End Lentils, the 24-carat taste of purity.
Go on, should we talk a little bit about the plot? There's a plot.
I'll do a brief synopsis of the...
Are we 39 minutes in?
I'll do a brief synopsis.
Are we 39 minutes in and we're only getting to the inciting incident? How very apt.
Now, okay, so this is a very brief one. Mike, Neil, Vyvyan and Rik are students, and they learn that the council is going to demolish their house. Vyvyan decides to demolish the house from the inside, and Neil wants to commit suicide. That's essentially a plot.
That's
doesn't
good.
Sound like the greatest comedy, does it? It does. To a lot of people, they'd be like, "Well, that sounds depressing as hell."
Sitting down to watch this in the knowledge that I've seen all the episodes before at least once, and some of them I've seen a lot. I'm only speaking for myself here. I did my best to approach the rewatches as fresh as I can, knowing I can't completely put myself in the shoes of our elder brothers who watched it with no foreknowledge. So at that point, when people were watching it for the first time, it was a new comedy from some young upstarts finding their way onto TV. We know now the impact it's had on sitcoms and the careers of all the people involved and it went on to have, and the historical perspective that we have now. But I tried to watch it as fresh as possible, and I tried to appreciate it kind of with that historical context as well. I don't know about you guys, but I watched it on the Blu-ray, which was released a year or two ago.
The 40th anniversary, wasn't it?
Yeah, and watching it on the Blu-ray, even just putting the disc in, took me back to the late 90s and early 2000s of putting a disc in, having a menu on a loop, playing the theme tune over and over again. I've got to say, the quality of the Blu-ray I thought was really good. The menu screen was brilliant. The pictures were great. They were so good you could even see in the reflection in Mike's glasses, the photographer in the room in the background. That's the way I did a rewatch. It wasn't on video. So I've got to say, if there's been any editing or changes, I will...
Apparently there is something in Cash. One of the bands, they didn't have the rights for the DVD. I think maybe they got it back for the Blu-ray. It just cuts abruptly, which is weird. The VHS is how I watch them, wore them to death. I can't talk about the young ones without mentioning how brilliant the double tape sets for series 1 and 2, the designs of them were all covered in baked beans and cigarette butts and stuff, and just I got them as a present, for a Christmas present, while I was on holiday. So I got them and I couldn't watch them for a couple of weeks. All I could do was look at the box art for a while, and I think that's maybe why I love the box art so much.
How come you couldn't watch them straight away?
Because I was on holiday.
So you were away
I was in Spain or something.
You were away for Christmas, so you didn't have a video player with you. Wow, okay. Well, that's torture.
Isn't it? Look at this, you can't have it yet.
And but I'm not going to give you it.
And there was one episode I hadn't seen, and then I saw it, which was the last one, actually, Summer Holiday. I've never seen that.
Well, it's like giving someone a VHS tape now, isn't it? Like, here you go. You'll never be able to watch it unless you go to Video Odyssey in Liverpool, which is the last video shop in the UK, which my brother runs.
I mean, so the little plug there. I mean, the cast actually ascribed VHS as to part of the success of the show itself, not the professional BBC ones,
being recorded.
People at this point, there was the rise of the video recorder, and people were taping stuff on the telly, and that's how the kids who were watching it the next day on video were watching it, because they were getting their parents to record it for them when they got to bed, and
or sneakily doing it behind their parents' back. That's what I used to have to do.
So this episode opens, we get the theme tune, which then carries through diegetically into the actual first scene on the radio. Rick dancing, Neil enters, I think, and
Neil is already there cooking lentil casserole,
and I think it's probably a good idea from the creators, from the producers, whatever, in terms of you've got this show that's there with these two double acts. Have one of each. I think Paul Jackson always kind of thought that Rick was probably the stronger of 20th Century Coyote, and that's why Rick the Poet was on Boom Boom Out Go the Lights, and they were always trying to get Neil just to do stuff on his own. But have one from each double act. Don't have both Rick and Ade, because then you might make the mistake of thinking, it's their show. Have one of each, and then that way there's a kind of balance between the two, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think all four of them being on screen at the same time would have been too much to try and introduce each character, wouldn't it? So it's brilliant that you've got, obviously, the premise that obviously Rick had from the off was like, he's a Cliff Richard fan. He's dancing to the Young Ones, the theme tune. Very, very over the top in his movements to the actual melody of the Young Ones as well, isn't it? It's like completely sort of dyspraxic, his movements. You just within the first second, Rick is an absolute nerd,
and he's kind of answering critics' feedbacks within the episode with defending that he's not boring. How interesting I am.
It's even just it's a shame about Cliff Richard, isn't it? So he's trying to bring him up, and then Neil's like, what about him, or whatever, and then Rick gets annoyed that Neil doesn't know what he's talking about, and how would he? But he's engaged him in conversation, but it immediately sets up the dynamic that Rick picks on Neil as well. Anything he says is wrong.
His mannerisms seem to me, people who have seen his character Rick the Poet on stage doing things like, I don't know, Vanessa Redgrave. He's got the same look, same hair, dressed the same, but his mannerisms when he's moving and dancing, to me, are quite like Richard Dangerous when he's protecting something.
He's got more energy and chaos to him than he does in the other series. Him smashing up a TV is a little bit out of character for him. I think that's much more a Vyvyan thing.
Right.
Then we've got Mike's character coming in with his weird flight fancy stuff, doing suggesting he's mobbed up and stuff.
Exactly.
Falls a bit flat, I think.
Well, it's like, did you get a phone call, isn't it, and all that to Rick that goes into, and it's
that's quite a fun joke. Well, no one phoned you. We haven't got a telephone.
Yeah, that confusion on Rick's face is so much fun, isn't it? It's kind of like, I thought you said he didn't call. He didn't, and he panicking and then again you've got the dynamic between Rick kind of goes down to Neil's on the bottom, and then Rick's kind of like.
Absolutely. You do see that straight away. Their relationships are completely different. He will not fight back to Mike. He sees him as the father figure. They all follow an archetype of the classic family, don't they? Mike's the dad, Neil's the mum, kind of, and Rick and Ade, Vyvyan and Rick are the squabbling children.
Siblings, yeah, definitely.
Do you want to hear Rik Mayall's description of Rick Speaking to The Guardian in 1987, Rik Mayall said, Rik is just self-centered. He wants street cred, wants to be a rebel, to care about nothing and be an anarchist. But we all know he's a hypocrite and that he'll be a computer analyst by the time he's 30, the little shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean,
he is a hypocrite for sure. Yeah.
He's snivelling, isn't he?
Yeah.
He'll a bit like Richie in that regard. He'll toady up to power.
Mm-hmm.
Like if a policeman came in behind the policeman's back, he'd probably call them a fascist. But he would
You're
absolutely
talking hypothetical
You see it
here.
later
That's
on,
literally what happens a few times. He does flicks the fees up to behind the cop on the street when they're having a party. It's been too loud. He's like, yes, officer, yes, sir, yes, I'm sorry.
Well, it's the classic coward, isn't it? But he talks a good talk until he's actually presented with the the conflict. And
There's a bit of rimmer in him, I think. Rick, the student, is a little bit of rimmer.
I mean,
in him.
what sort of snivelling coward?
Yeah.
But as you
And
say,
always complaining.
You say he's the child of the group. Yeah, that's really exemplified by the "Where's my biro?" That's like a
I
child.
love that.
Isn't
I
it?
find that so funny. That it's not. Where's my pen? Where's my nice silver thing that you refill it? So it's a biro.
Ah, well, as Reese Shearsmith says in an episode of Inside Number 9, you want to do comedy, do specifics.
Yeah.
Don't say biscuits. Say
Bernie
Garibaldi.
Clifton's dressing
That's
room
the one.
is the
Yeah.
episode title you're reaching.
Yeah. And it's just like, where's my biro? You can have mine. It's like, well, this is my biro. It's half empty. It was like, what?
Biro is funnier, isn't it?
And it's just a cheap plastic pen, they're not refillable, are they?
My biro.
Yeah.
I mean, how many biros do you buy? You buy a big pack and they just go around the house and everyone nicks them, innit?
Vyvyan comes in, literally crashes in through the wall 10 minutes into the episode.
Yeah.
It literally, a third of the show, he's not in.
It's a really good idea to do that because 10 minutes in, the audience watching, and by the way, the audience watching in the studio, he did crash through the wall in the studio and they didn't see him. It wasn't like they saw him on the other side of the wall. He came down like a slide that was hidden from him.
Yeah, Paul Jackson said there was a chute that's rigged up through a paper wall.
10 minutes in, you're not thinking, oh, we're going to be joined by another character. You're thinking this show features these three characters and no one else. So it's even more of a surprise, isn't it?
Yeah, and the reaction from the crowd shows you that
Yeah.
instantly.
Yeah.
And I love how even they must have rehearsed it ever so slightly, but Mike, Chris, Ryan, obviously, he kind of jumps back, doesn't he? A chair goes over.
Yeah.
He's just perfectly in the middle of the table.
Now, I did want
You get the feeling it's not the first time he's done it as well.
He tops it. This has just happened. He's crashed into all the food and stuff, and Rick's not, oh my god, you smashed through the wall. So you might have washed your hands.
Which is a brilliant thing of what a kid might say to their brother.
It's just
mum's usually telling them to wash their
little
hands.
thing he's going to pull him up on. He just wants to bicker, doesn't he?
But then kicking the sink off the wall, and we don't know yet that Vyvyan has got this. I'm demolishing the house in his head.
Yeah.
But at that point, he's just smashing the place up anyway, and none of them react as if that's an outrageous thing for him to do.
This is normal Vyvyan behaviour almost.
Well, and that Ade Edmondson argued, made the case that Paul Jackson says that Vyvyan is a nihilist and a destructive nihilist. Ade says that Vyvyan is the most logical person in the house. He just has his own logic. If your plug doesn't reach the wall, drag the wall closer to the plug.
I think of him like a robot almost. Is like Ultron and the Avengers, whatever. You need to stop war's happening. Then I'll kill all humans. That'll stop war.
Yeah,
it's like that. There is a logic. You're right, but it.
Well, yeah, let's smash the house up before they come to demolish it, and they can't demolish it.
Technically, that's correct.
You'll really win there because there won't be a house for them.
You've misunderstood the problem, Vyvyan.
Yeah.
You've misunderstood it completely. I like the will that he's the one who delivers the plot. Really, because it's a letter from the council. What letter? And then doesn't tell them again. What letter? What letter? What letter? And then I like to think that the first time I saw it, it's he got the letter. They're demolishing the house tomorrow. I thought the letter would say we are demolishing the house tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think he got this letter a while ago and has been sitting on it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't just get a letter the day before, would you?
Because that would be really unrealistic in this show. Yeah.
As the first sort of scene opens, all the bills obviously in the second one are piled up, and that's how students live. They're not opening their mail, they're not looking at their bills, they're not seeing whether they're just about to be thrown out or the wrecking ball's about about to crash. But yeah, it's a brilliant entrance from Vyvyan. It sets him up in a heartbeat, doesn't it, in terms of what his inner character is. And that's where you get that anarchy. I think that's why people always go on about it being an anarchic sitcom.
It sets him up, but also sets the sitcom up. But lets people know this
there
is
a
kind
plot
of
now.
No. But what I mean is, other sitcoms don't have people entering by crashing through the wall. This was setting this apart from all the other shows on TV, wasn't it?
This is a live action cartoon. You don't know what's going to happen next. You do not know what's going to happen next, and that is exciting, isn't it?
What surprised me is that if you look at the set dressing for this episode, the pilot episode, there's a massive bookcase full of plates, like there must be about 50 or 60 plates on it. You look at that, knowing the young ones as you do now, you go,
expect them
that's
to be
going
up
to fall down at some point and crash. Just like in the second episode when Neil opens the cupboard and they all fall out. Never gets touched. Nothing, felt like Chekhov's Chekhov's bookcase of plates, and the gun never got fired.
Again, subverting expectation, right?
Maybe,
because that's the point. Is it's like, oh well, it might not be that goes, but keep your eye on the camera left because that's just about to blow up. The oven's going to go. You have no idea, but that's what's actually going to happen. You're being misdirected.
So we've got one of the first cutaways from Vyvyan smashing through another wall into The Neighbours when it goes into something like a Chekhov play. It's something very dreary and boring. Again, showing Rik and Ade's love of Beckett and that sort of stuff, right?
What do you
I think as drama students, the idea was that they would obviously have these little like offcuts of that was the idea that they wanted to actually homage real true drama.
I thought a little bit of a flex showing that no, we do know about this sort of stuff.
Exactly.
We are cultured.
What do you guys think of the aside? Do you in general enjoy them? Are there some that you like? Some that you
I think it's sometimes needed just so that the energy's not always a 10. And I like the fact that after that very boring things happened. First of all, I like that the Vyvyan, when they get back, tell them I'm incredibly sorry, like shouting that at them.
It's someone else's house. Yeah. But I do love how they let them it's that rise and fall of
goes
tension,
down,
isn't it?
And then Rik comes in, not say, can you be quiet please? I'm trying to watch my favourite programme. Right? First of all, we got show, it's programme with his R. And also, he then establishes this is a new show, he's not seen it before, so it's not his favourite programme. He's a wanker, he's such a prick.
Which is then repeated in Bottom, of course, when Richie is arguing that he wants to watch his favourite programme. Even though it isn't at all anything that he knows what it is. Just to go back to your question, Paul, about whether you like the asides, I think there are some that are stronger than others. We haven't even touched upon the puppetry yet, have we? But again, going back to trying to watch this with trying to peel away the layers of the years and try and watch it as a brand new show and what you would have felt watching it for the first time, it just adds to the uniqueness of it, doesn't it? It's like nothing. It's almost fresh. It is almost like a children's idea, isn't it? Like, we'll have some puppets coming in.
Did you know?
And that will be entertaining, but they'll be very adult in the way that they act. When have you ever seen a rat eat another rat as a puppet? It's
what now people think of Family Guy for, and they think it's just fairly standard, and they think other shows invented it. It's a Family Guy cutaway. Young Ones was doing it back in 1982, but live or
to animate a cutaway is the exact same money as animating anything else. To do a cutaway live action, you need to build a new set. You need to do these things.
Some people might say, it's just filling. It's filling because they haven't got the plot or whatever. But it's part of the vibe of the entire show. Is you never know what exactly is going to happen. I do like the rats. I kind of like the rat costumes they're puppets.
They're puppets. According to Paul Jackson's commentary, he said that they were 6 foot tall. They were, and it's one of the guys who did Roland the Rat.
The guy who did Roland Rat.
It's incredible the idea they're that big.
Apparently when they turned up, he said it was a bit like a Spinal Tap Stonehenge moment.
What a fuck!
Jesus,
how are they going to film?
But that's in reverse, isn't it? Because aren't they tiny in Stonehenge?
Exactly.
In
Stonehenge is tiny.
Yeah. Did you know one of the rats is voiced by Chris Barry?
Oh, really? No, I didn't.
I think the other one's Nigel Planer.
I know they usually shared it out amongst the crew,
the cast.
I mean, pretty much. Yeah, it was either the main cast or they would use people who were guest starring. I think that was a way of getting their money's worth out of them and not having to pay a voice actor,
doesn't it? Yeah. Because the Fly on the Wall one, you can see it's actually Rik as one of them.
Doing Kevin Turvey voice, really.
Yeah. I like some of them. Some of them, I have to admit, I used to fast forward. For the purpose of this series, I will fast forward nothing. I've been watching everything, even Alexi's bits.
Adrian Edmondson has gone on record as saying he hates the puppets in it.
It's that thing of one time it's funny, but on the rewatch it gets less. So it's diminishing returns.
On the subject of puppets, Special Patrol Group, SPG, I think is a scene-stealing wonder. I think he's so funny. It is aggressively Glaswegian.
Is he the flash heart of?
And he does it, and he changes his look quite a lot, doesn't he? I mean, towards later episodes, he looks more like Vyvyan.
Who voices SPG? Does anyone know?
No, I don't actually.
Because it doesn't sound like any of the main cast.
I think it's just such a strong Scottish voice, isn't it? But he's got the studs in his head and the hair of Vyvyan, which I imagine Vyvyan did to the hamster.
Oh yeah. Well, the hamster hasn't made the decision to do it, has he?
Well, I don't know. He could have. Like he's got like, I can murder a curry. All this stuff. It's so.
Yeah, I always assumed it was Adrian.
Doing the voice.
I wonder if we can find out exactly who it is before next week's episode. But what did confuse me a little bit on the commentary track is that Paul Jackson says that Rik gave Special Patrol Group to his daughter.
Yeah, who then
as
died.
A gift, as like a real hamster.
Yeah.
I'm really confused because he was always a puppet, isn't he? In every episode?
Maybe there's some shots where he's a hamster and then the close-ups is a puppet. That's not true. No.
Puppets. So
maybe he gave a.
That's it. I think.
Let's remember to ask him that.
Paul Jackson was it? Did Rik just get your daughter a hamster called Special Patrol Group as a sort of in joke?
No, I never.
Or did you have some kind of stunt play hamster at the beginning?
So I never noticed this. I never noticed this until you brought it up in our Rik Mayall series when Rik gets his head like smushed into the food by Vyvyan, and he's like fuming for about a minute of not talking, like waiting for something to say, and then I think Special Patrol Group's a stupid name for a hamster. Like he's thinking of something that will get him there. So, right, okay, I'll change then. Hello, Cliff Richard, you bastard!
I love
me
that.
again.
That for me in the pilot episode is like Richie and Eddie style, isn't it? Of like their back and forth, how much they hate each other, and it's very very sibling like rivalry-esque, isn't it? And like I love that. I've talked about it before, but I love that line. And just the way Rik kind of he's acting throughout, like building up to when he says it. He's not passive, but he's got no lines until he does say, "I think it's a."
So when we see
name for a hamster.
There's another cutaway. It's the ladies on the bus.
Yes,
see Neil.
Just played by Vyvyan's mum. One of their women,
yes, one of the actresses is the one who plays Vyvyan's mum. The ladies on the bus are Pauline Melville and Maggie Steed. They were both part of the alternative comedy movement that have broken through. Friends of the makers of the show and who got jobs on it.
What's the joke here?
So she sees Neil. I think he's talking about killing himself, something like that. And she says what he needs, and I want to ask if I'm just having a Mandela moment here, right? Because what I saw on the Blu-ray was she said what he needs is a good hard, and then the bus went ding ding.
Yeah.
I swear I remember her going further with that and saying what he needs is a good hard cock up his arse or something like that.
No.
And then it goes ding ding.
No. I'd always.
Am I conflating that with like Rick saying a nice comfortable fist up the arse?
I think you're thinking of the vicar, maybe.
The vicar, the parrot.
In
what that vicar needs a good hard stiff cock over his arse.
So was it always just what he needs is a good hard and then it goes ding ding?
I've never seen it in any way.
And that's bringing Alexis Sale into it as well.
Jerzy Bolofsky gets off the bus, doesn't he?
Bus into the flat. Now
the brilliance of that joke is you get it around the censor because you're not actually saying the sweary thing. It could be slap, couldn't it? It could be anything, but you're making up the rude word in your head.
I thought it's like he needs a good seeing to, needs a good shag or whatever. That will cheer him up. I don't think that is so bleak and funny with like him fucking up the suicide bit, and the fact that he tells everyone before, I'm going to kill myself now, and they're like, yes, goodbye, all this stuff, and they're like, yes, goodbye Neil, bye Neil, whatever. And then
they're mocking him.
Yeah, they think he has done it, and oh no, the rent's going up.
We've got to pay more money now.
Fantastic.
And then seeing him like with the rope being too long or whatever, that must be really embarrassing if anyone sees that. And then just imagine actually seeing that if you look into someone's house, a failed suicide attempt.
So Alexei Sale turns up as Jerzy Bolofsky, who is owed rent. He's the landlord. Now, Alexei Sale was like the big guy from the comedy store.
There was kind of a demand from Rik and that, like, we need him.
He was kind of the guy that they all looked up to because he was sort of the guy who had been there from the start. He was the compere, so they wanted to bring him in. He would come in. Kind of the thing that Alexei Sale would do in The Young Ones is they'd find a way to bring him in. They might do a bit of back and forth as the landlord, but he'd kind of be given a minute, 2 minutes, just to do what he wanted. He would write his own stuff.
It's incredible.
Got
isn't
an
it?
additional material credit.
And he'd get paid for it as well. Yeah, for
Ed
writing
By
it.
said that it would often just be in the script, that would just be Alexi's bit.
Yeah.
No one would know what he was actually going to come on and say. And he said, I don't even think Alexi knew until he necessarily turned up and started talking.
Now, I know nosing around isn't the same thing as the young ones, but I think it's kind of like a little bit of it's setting up itself a bit, where he talks about all this stuff. Oh, it's made by amateurs, young people. It's for young kids.
Apparently, it was the parody of the Oxford Road show. Is what they say on the commentary, isn't it? And Ben apparently went on to present that as well.
Yeah. But I get what you're saying, right? Because the young ones achieved what their nosing around wanted to achieve, which was made by young people, appreciated by younger people.
I like this when Rick's picking it up, he's selling point of it. It's probably only relevant to 3 people or something. It's not that great.
Well, that's the thing. It's that idea of like a show made for young people by young people. It's a without being, it's a play within a play, isn't it? It's the nosing around is a show within the young ones as a show, and it is their pastiching themselves, but also those kind of right on kind of like nonsense things that would go almost, they were jarring and they weren't really what young people wanted to watch.
I know that was the early 80s version, but there's something quite timeless about nosing around. As someone born in 1980 and who watched TV in the 80s and then through the 90s, there's always been shows like this on, hasn't there, where they're like, hey, we're really hip and we're going to appeal to the youth, you know.
I like the really bad booking that they've got, the head of Polytechnic or something, who's this old guy who's trying to dance in the background.
Like the careers advice or something like that.
It's like a pointy out sketches.
And it's at that Poly as well, not even a university. It's,
Like
That's
like
what
Don't Forget Your
that
Toothbrush
shock.
and those kind of shows. Like when we were watching, when we were at that age, like those, like we're just going to present Top of the Pops, but we're all over the studio and we're being like really funky and cool and everything. It's like you look at it and you can really take the piss out of like what they're actually just trying too hard to be cool, aren't they? It's that Mike the Ball person thing.
The Vox Pops they had in it, I love what they're doing with that is that, and these shows would always do this, is we're going to fixate on one topic that might matter to a few people, but doesn't really matter to most people that much. In this case, it was, I want to be able to, we want to lower the age of drinking, basically. And so you've got those 3 guys, apparently all of whom auditioned to play Mike.
Yes, that's what Paul Jackson says in the commentary. Yeah, that's a real cool little Easter egg, I think.
Yeah.
And I think each one of them would have been very different as well as Mike. Strange to think.
The final guy who is a bit more animated because he sniffs on a bottle of glue.
Yes.
He would have been a very interesting Mike. He's got that sort of slightly junky look. He's quite pale. He's
got a big,
he was
fat,
a housemate
broken
of Ben
nose.
Elton.
Oh, really?
Back in Manchester, He's called Chris Ellis.
His nose looks big and bulbous as well, like it's full of glue.
It does,
That must be why he sort of got asked to do it. I think in Ben's autobiography, he says, and I don't know how he words it, but he's like the big nosed.
Yeah. Okay.
And he is,
right. So that particular little Vox Pop actually generated a letter for Paul Jackson, because in that little shot, the guy sniffs on a bottle of glue.
Recognisable bottle, right?
He sniffs on a bottle of glue. Like, it's only in frame for a moment, but Paul Jackson received this letter. Dear Mr. Jackson, I write at the request of one of our business units, Royal Sovereign, who for many years have manufactured and marketed Stephen's Golden Gum. I understand that in the course of a programme called The Young Ones on BBC Two television on the evening of Tuesday 9th November, a man was shown as glue sniffing. It was apparently clear to a number of people watching the programme that the glue being sniffed was in fact a bottle of Stephen's Golden Gum. Not only is the shape of the bottle and the colour of its contents well known and significant, but I understand the name of the product was on the bottle was clearly visible. He then goes on to basically say, we're concerned about our product being used in such a manner and the damage it would do to its reputation. Paul Jackson
increase sales or anything, wouldn't it?
You know what? It's so quick. I assume it must have been a really recognisable brand at the time. Paul Jackson replies, and I can only assume he's taken legal advice for this, right? Because he's worded this so carefully. Dear Mr. Painter, with reference to your letter of November 25th, I am sorry to hear that during the incident you describe, it was possible to recognise a bottle of Stephen's Golden Gum. I was most careful during the recording of the insert to ensure that the brand name was not in fact visible. I was, however, unaware that the shape of the bottle was a unique and identifying mark. I fully understand your concern and can only say that if your product has been shown in an undesirable context, then this was against my specific intentions, and I regret any inconvenience that this may have caused your company. There was certainly no intention on our part to insinuate that the sniffing of Stevens induced a hallucinatory condition. Yours sincerely, Paul Jackson, producer of The Young Ones.
That does sound like he's had advice,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it is interesting to think any of those could have been Mike.
Mm-hmm.
And there's obviously, a reason Chris Ryan won it. I think, again, part of the whole, like, him being a cool person, but him being so small must have felt like part of the joke.
Yeah, do you think Alexei, Mike, my little Thunderbird puppet, I think is reference to that, to his stature,
you know
right?
what I mean? Like, if you'd had someone who was a little bit more foreboding
Yeah.
and, took up, literally was a huger part of the screen, like, I don't think it's that idea that Mike's actually overcompensating, isn't he, in his character, which, again, I think on paper, it should work, shouldn't it? I think there's just a few factors that it wasn't a practice character. Chris Ryan was an actor rather than a comedian performing, and he didn't have the same kind of intimate
Can you imagine a Mike spin-off, a one-off show of just Mike going out and trying to be cool?
Anyway, this episode isn't about how much the Mike character didn't work in the episode.
No, but we do need to address it because I think most people, when they do talk about the young one, they sort of go, oh, but Mike, I know certainly like Richard Herring sort of talked about it a lot. He's a big fan of the young ones, isn't he? And then whenever he does, he's like, oh, but Mike was the kind of like let down as a character, and it's interesting to try and figure out what it was about it that maybe just led to it not being like the perfect addition.
Is it just that the other three are so good?
Do you think that if it had only been Vyvyan, Neil, and Rik, that it still would have worked? Like, would it have been something missing if we hadn't had the father figure?
I think you still need that other father figure.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone has to be the weakest one. Someone has to be a straight man.
The voice of reason, all that.
Now, when they did Rik Mayall and the Bastard Squad tour thing with Rik, Vyvyan, and Neil, without Mike, so maybe was he not available or was he not wanted?
But what were they doing on stage?
Just singing and like,
and
then, in character and like,
okay, but so that's just singing. Like, then you want to transpose the characters into a sitcom. Suddenly, you probably need that fourth.
Well,
person.
he was brought back for the comic relief thing, the Living Doll. So right at the end, after nosing around, we get each four characters dealing with plot, their demolition thing in their own unique ways.
Which, by the way, we're outside, and I noticed, and this was before I listened to the commentary, I was looking at it going, the outside stuff looks really good. They must have shot it on, I believe sitcoms would shoot inside on video, outside on film. They must have shot it on video. And I was really proud of myself for noticing this, because if you remember things like, you'd see the disparity.
Monty Python stuff would do it.
You'd see disparity in things like Fawlty Towers when they go outside, and Monty Python lampoon this with this entire place is surrounded by video. Then I watched it on
surrounded by film.
This entire place is surrounded by film. Thank you. Then I watched it with the commentary, and Paul Jackson actually said they made a point of they wanted to shoot outside on video, which made it quite difficult because they needed the equipment.
They needed an outside broadcast truck. It was basically like the news.
But it's so worth it because these older sitcoms, it would always just jar so much. Like you're watching Reginald Perrin in a studio, and then now he's walking to Norbiton Station outside. It just looks so different. So I'm really glad they did that, because it makes the quality match really helps.
Exactly. It feels part of the world and the story still. It doesn't suddenly bring you out of it.
And again, I think, is that part of a budgetary thing, or was it just we want to do something a bit different? Because that was quite a bold choice, right? To be like, we'll do it on the fly. We'll do it on rather than the traditional way.
So that can't have been in front of a studio audience, that bit, right?
Well, no, there's the external shots, isn't it?
The outside stuff wouldn't.
Yeah.
No, they didn't have a studio audience.
They bring them out and
they wouldn't set up. They wouldn't set up
rack of benches sort of thing for them all. Yeah.
Do you know? I mean, I'm just going to say it because it's the first episode, but because they filmed the pilot in London, didn't they? It's in Islington, isn't it? The exterior of that house. Like, you wonder whether maybe it was just a decision made then, and then it had to carry through to Bristol, or do you think it was just they were like, no, this is an artistic decision. We'd have to kind of. I think it's probably the latter. But you do wonder whether there were certain time constraints or budget constraints that made them do certain things when it was the pilot, and then we're like, well, let's just do that again.
I don't think,
because often it's not like this big grand plan, is it? It's just, well, that's what's available. We've got the van, let's do it.
I don't think shooting on video would be cheaper outside. Otherwise, all
Right.
sitcoms would have done it. Because I mean, like,
Okay.
otherwise, why would they all shoot on film outside?
It feels like that they wouldn't have been set up to have as much of the equipment other than the traditional way, which would have been film, which is why I would have thought they've always done it.
It's the outside broadcast trucks are traditionally for sport and news stuff.
So you have to mix it live.
Yeah.
But I
You
guess
don't
it's
get the edit. You don't get it on film and quite literally have the reel to then edit physically. It was fascinating hearing them talk about, if you had to edit, you had to literally get a
real
razor.
thing,
Like, you're cutting it with a scalpel and sticking the film back together.
Paul Jackson has said that how much the BBC studio was second only to Hollywood, and so that's a factor as well. It wasn't them making this on their own. They had the BBC's resources and stuff. So having the outside broadcast thing was probably something that was, I don't know, like, he was an up and comer, right? And I think that this did have the full BBC support.
I think he's described it as like, I mean, for one thing, he's very humble about the success of it, in that he attributes a lot of it to the other BBC departments. But he said, as you said, the people working there at the time were like the best in the business. So it was kind of an embarrassment of riches of you'd be able to choose the best people to come work on your show.
Yeah. It's incredible, isn't it, that they did take the punt on them. Like, in many ways, when you think about the feedback that they got, which was like, well, if you pull this off, mate, then, I'll admire you even more. But they didn't have confidence in them.
All of the guys in the house have got their own little plan to try and thwart what's happening. Rick is going to crucify himself.
Can we just that I just want to point out that it's just impossible to get that last nail in. Like, you think Neil has done it, and that's from experience.
He says that he's tried it multiple times.
That's
Mike's plan is to try and seduce the lady from the council.
One little bit I think that really stands out with that doesn't get a good enough laugh, and it's just weird, is when he's dusting the snooker cue with chalk and then eats the chalk.
Yeah, right. I don't know whether people necessarily noticed it when they would have been playing the VT in the room.
That's weird.
It's quite a small little movement that
he does. What do you do that for?
Yeah, random.
Did the character make a mistake and then he has to kind of style it out? Like, well, shit, I've got chalk in my mouth. I don't know.
I think it's just Mike trying to be cool, isn't it? It's not like, let's eat the
coolest thing possible, eating chalk. Yeah, like Charlie from It's Always Sunny.
Neil and Vyvyan's plan is to try and destroy the house before they can get there.
Yes, I love that you mentioned It's Always Sunny, by the way, because I think I've previously said that I feel like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is finally the Americans catching up to the anarchy, the idea of dirt and grime in a sitcom. If anyone out there hasn't watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I would recommend it. It's not on a par with the young ones, but I just think it's
different.
They've finally kind of been like, let's do an unlikable cast. Let's do everyone unlikable. Yeah. And in that way, it's very, very funny.
And Neil's plan is just affirmative action of giving them all the leftover lentil casserole, I think.
And then, of course, circumstances contrive to destroy the house anyway.
Yeah.
God, how cheap is it then, sat there as if they're in a cockpit?
Paul Bradley and Andy Delatorre are in the shittest cockpit in the world.
No wonder the plane crashes. There's no joystick.
A grey two-walled studio building.
I laughed my head off the first time I watched it with the line, "Wow, I really hope we don't ever crash."
But that's again, that's like classic setting up, and like, obviously it's about to happen.
Imagine like that's banter in a cockpit. It's like, I've never thought about this before. But wow, imagine if we had a crash. Oh, you're right. Yeah, wow. And
an interesting nugget from the commentary. I mean, I hope other people listening will have also heard the commentary, but if you haven't, it was Andy Delatorre that recommended Chris Ryan for Mike.
Yes, yeah.
They were in a play together, right?
Yeah. So all of this kind of people working together, recommending each other. Paul Bradley had obviously been at uni with them as well.
Yeah. And Andy Delatorre did a tour with Rik on a stand-up thing, which is after the Young Ones, though, isn't it?
It's interesting to note that there's no laughs during the crash at all.
Yeah.
Do you think people are a bit confused as to what's happening? Because it doesn't play out other than on sound.
It's shot badly, isn't it? Like, you don't.
I mean, it's done with the budget they have, isn't it? Like, but it's an interesting choice because so this might shock some people about sitcoms, but laughs are sometimes added later to augment them. That's not to say that every single laugh you hear is fake, but they do add some things. And even in the Young Ones, and I know this because in the BBC archive I found some notes from Paul Jackson saying things like add a titter here, bigger laugh here, that kind of thing. Not for this episode, but for another one. The fact that there's no laughs during the ending means it was a creative choice by Paul Jackson and the writers, presumably.
So they
must
have fall flat.
Yeah.
I don't like the slogan that comes now. That isn't that a funny thing or something?
Now that's sort of homaging the fact that they're kind of it's sort of a live action cartoon, isn't it? It's a funny thing. That's in the style of like Looney Tunes.
Yes, it is.
Like That's All, folks.
But that slogan that I've never heard said before. I don't know. Isn't that a funny thing? I don't know. I think that could have been better.
I think it doesn't get the massive laugh because visually there isn't much really actually happening, is there? It almost just, it does end on a little bit of a whimper. But it is a funny idea that, the house is being demolished and then escalating to, oh, actually a plane's going to crash on them. Like,
so if they'd have done nothing, the house would have just been destroyed anyway, because there wasn't anything they did that made the plane hit them.
And what's brilliant...
That's a good point.
Yeah.
There should have been something laid early on that they were the cause of the plane crash, shouldn't it? Yeah.
Well, that's again where they'll
just the anarchy and randomness.
And I think Paul Jackson talks about how they were trying to use that sort of classic, the cat's run up the tree. All the characters start panicking about how to get the cat down from the tree, and then the end of the usual sitcom is the cat comes down of its own accord. Yeah. And that is the classic kind of setup generally in a lot of sitcom plots. So again, playing with the form, playing with what was expected, was probably not even really in Ben Elton and Rik and Lisa's head. I mean, like I said, Ben claims he wrote the plot to that first pilot. Okay. I'm not saying that he's saying that he wrote absolutely everything from then on and Rik and Lisa didn't, but I think it was like he expected to be the writer credit. And it is interesting that he was 21 years old, he'd only written plays. And we've talked before about how Bottom is almost like a play, isn't it? Like and maybe that's part of the magic, is that actually he didn't really know how to write like the sitcom kind of classic setup.
Maybe.
And then the way in which all the characters converge in the A plot, B plot, C plot that you see the formulaic nature of so many sitcoms now. When you know about A plot, B plot, C plot, and how they all have to converge at the end, and the characters have to bring about their own downfall and all of that, that's what makes it feel very satisfying and resets, isn't it? And that's what's unique about the young ones, is it doesn't necessarily play to those expectations.
You mentioned Ben Elton as the writer there. We can only imagine how proud he must have been when that first episode went out. Yeah. And then over the course of the next week, the reviews started to come in. And would you guys like to hear a couple of the reviews?
Yeah, let's.
The Daily Express said, "The BBC is guilty of scraping the barrel with the young ones, an alleged punk satire in which 4 actors yell and bawl at each other like morons. No, I take that back. It's not fair on morons. It's very sad to see such a humourless, untalented bunch of non-entities being given the freedom of the screen. Shame on you, Auntie Beeb."
That was the Express.
I don't even want to know the name of that non-entity reviewer cunt.
There's not a name with it.
Good.
Let me read you the Financial Times.
Got to remember that reviewers are always trying to be the smartest.
Yeah.
But they're always
why the Financial Times even reviewing sitcoms?
Do you know what? I asked myself the same thing in 2009 when the Financial Times reviewed the film Jack Said, which I'd written, and said that
not as good as the young ones.
No, it said the script which I wrote makes Guy Ritchie look like Dostoevsky, and I was like, that's a great line. Why the fucking Financial Times reviewing low budget gangster films? Anyway, the FT, 17th of November 1982. I did laugh, and not once but repeatedly, at the first episode of The Young Ones on BBC Two. At the time of writing, I had not been able to see last night's second episode and can only pray that it maintain the standard. To suggest that any new comedy series is in line of succession to Monty Python and not the 9 o'clock news is to invite its prompt disintegration, yet The Young Ones does come closer than any other attempt so far. From, I think Special Patrol Group is a stupid name for a hamster near the start, to nosing around near the finish, a send-up of all those patronising teenage shows, its greatest attribute was its scorn for television's own new orthodoxy, which holds that women are more equal than men, the young and old more equal than the middle-aged, and blacks more equal than everyone. They had me until this last bit. More about that new orthodoxy next week. I thought they liked it up until the end, where they were basically saying everything's too woke now.
Yeah, maybe, but they're saying they're parodying that. The Financial Times.
The Financial Times. I don't know the writer name.
The Financial Times are always spot on with their reviews, though. I think I've always said that.
Of gangster films made in 2009.
Here a review of the Financial Times. Very little investment advice in this episode of The Young Ones. Maybe they liked oil.
Maybe.
Well, I'm not surprised, really, that the powers that be didn't like it.
But they never get things when it actually happens either, did they?
No. And then they all like to say, I think they all then reviewed Series 2 saying, oh, not as good as Series 1 when you slagged off Series 1.
But again, it's no surprise, is it, that they wanted to slate it. And I think, they probably weren't expecting to be adored by the Financial Times because it wasn't for them. It's that thing, isn't it? It's like, well, it's not for you. And I do I do love it. It's in one of the later ones when Rick's like in the line, isn't he? And he's like, the only reason you don't like our music is
because you don't understand it.
Yeah, it's like you don't understand our music because you don't like it. And that is literally it, isn't it? It sums it up. It's like older people will slag off things that are not really meant for them because they don't understand it. They say they don't like it, but it's because it's not really for you.
Do you know what? I love the fact that my dad hated it and slagged it off every time I was watching it, and I got to tell Paul Jackson, my dad hated it, and he went, good.
Yeah, it wasn't for him.
It wasn't for you.
Yeah. And that's why we're wanting to sort of talk about the young ones. We've obviously already done Bottom. We're sticking to Rik and Ade's stuff, aren't we? But I do love watching, many different sitcoms. I know you all do as well. And you sort of go back. I can see now where Peep Show's becoming almost a historical piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's now very much, of its time is what people are saying about sitcoms that we grew up with. And you do wonder, like, a lot of people are like, there's nothing on now. Like, there are loads of things that are on. You just might not be discovering them in the same way.
They're
and
not for you.
You will never get another The Young Ones because you'll never get every single teenager in Britain sitting around waiting for it to come on because it's their show.
There's not two channels.
And just in terms of the content of the show, it's it was because I can talk about it in the past context, because it's something that was a load of absolute talents just at the beginning of their career, sort of great melting pot of raw talent. And as a big comedy fan and a huge fan of Bottom, this for me is a really interesting and I hope exciting venture to rewatch these episodes because I found myself really appreciating the first episode of The Young Ones in a way I probably haven't previously, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of them.
Same, I'm really excited about us doing this series at last. I know we've tiptoed around doing it.
Yeah, I've been championing this for fucking ages.
But we had to go through the process of obviously doing all of Bottom and the live shows, and then we've obviously been writing the book. That's been out now for a year. Everyone can find it and hold it in your hot little hands. And now it's because we did think like, so is that it? Are we done with the podcast? And then we did the Rik Mayall series, which I actually really loved looking at all of Rick's work. Yeah. I know we maybe have unfinished business there as well. But I'm excited about doing the young ones. We're obviously only one episode in, and this is going to be a long one because it's the first one. But I hope you come back next week to hear us talking about oil.
What I'd like to say about my overall vibe, feeling of the young ones, what I love about it is that it wasn't them getting their break and being like, yeah, this is ours, fuck everyone else, we're better than you. It was, you come in, have a bit. There's so many other alternative comedians that they give roles to, give little moments to, give whole sketches to.
Steve Frost and Mark Arden, Hale and Pace. We see Paul Bradley popping up.
You've got French and Saunders not together though, but they pop up.
Lenny Henry,
Lee Corns.
Mark Lambert in a later episode.
Who's he in one of the?
He's a bank manager guy.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, what they're doing is they've gone up a couple of rungs on the ladder, and rather than trying to pull it up,
they've held the door open. Like, come in, sneak in.
Well, they share the
rather than try and pull it up after themselves, they're putting a hand down to try and bring people up with them, aren't they?
Yeah, and let's not forget, like, you would be like, who can play that? Oh, okay, we haven't really got. I don't think they had like a casting department as such, did they? Attached to it, be like, I know someone. You've got people on the circuit, people you've worked with, like, and back then it was a little bit jobs for the boys, wasn't it? And the women, Frances Saunders, Helen Lederer, like you're getting in the names that are on the circuit at the time, and that's again, it's that everyone at their like kind of palpable youth, and that's part of the historical piece of the young ones now is like it's this little wonderful golden nugget of like everyone in the 80s at that kind of pinnacle of their start of that. But they weren't the pinnacle yet, but that was the start of that. So,
the genesis.
It's magic to watch it. It's a little time capsule, isn't it, as well, to the 80s.
Standout moments, guys.
Ooh,
I mean, obvious, but obviously Vyvyan coming through the wall. I mean, anything Rik says is always brilliant. Yeah. But as I've already said, I do really love when he's like jibing at Vyvyan about Special Patrol Group. I think that entire little bickering bit is brilliant.
I like nosing around, but I think my favourite part of the episode, which ironically none of the main guys are in.
Well, Ben Elton's great in it, isn't he?
Yes, yeah, like, and it ends with the TV smashing. It's great.
I did wonder why Ben maybe wasn't a choice for playing Mike, but I think again he wasn't a performer, was he?
He wanted to play Mike, but that was shut down by Paul Jackson, I believe.
Oh,
interesting.
So there was a bit of resentment about that, in that he wanted to play the role and thought he might be able to.
Yeah.
and it ended up not happening.
Because
So,
that, I could see that.
Yeah.
I could absolutely see that. So that's interesting. But there you go. Decisions made. Fine. Decision from the producer is final.
yeah, I think standout moment for me would be nosing around, culminating in Rick sticking his foot through the TV. I love that. Yeah. Okay, now in the best traditions of Talking Bottom, in this case, Talking the Young Ones, it's time for a quiz. I'm Quizmaster this week. I'll be doing 10 questions, and hopefully it won't be a tie because I've only got 10 questions. Matt and Angela will be answering. I think we're going to be using fart buzzers.
Again.
Yeah, I think
go
we'll
back
go
to the
back
farts.
to that. It works for the young ones, doesn't it?
Ange, let's hear yours. Matt, you'll be using the physical fart buzzer rather than app. Let's hear yours. Brilliant. Okay.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Fingers on sphincters. What date did the first episode air on British TV? That would be Ange.
The 9th of November, 1982.
That is correct. That's 1 to Ange. All right, here we go. Question 2. In what order do the pictured main characters appear in the opening credits? Matt buzzed in first there. Okay, Matt.
Okay, so it is Rick, then Neil, then Mike, then Vyvyan, and then Mr. Belowski.
Okay, I don't think that's correct.
Wow.
I think Mr. Belowski before Vyvyan.
No, I thought the order was Rick, Vyvyan, Neil.
No, Vyvyan
Mike.
comes through 10 minutes. Oh, sorry.
No,
I think
in the
Matt
credits-
buzzed too soon. He didn't know you were talking about the credits.
Okay, right.
You're saying about the credit. I thought the ones from the credits.
Okay, well,
So the 5 main characters, what
okay.
order do they appear
No,
in?
the question was,
Yeah.
what order do the pictured main characters appear in the opening credits?
Okay, then I would say it
well,
is Rick.
You can't answer now because
Vyvyan.
Paul's just told
Did he?
you.
Oh, but I didn't listen. I just heard. No, you're wrong. Stop listening.
Right. Well, I think no one should get a point because I didn't.
All
Get
right.
a
And
chance
so
to listen on that
so
one.
then
So that
so don't judge me on it. I genuinely didn't listen to what you said.
Well, tell you
I'm
what,
gonna
How
guess.
about you wait till the end
in
of the question
future,
before buzzing
wait
in?
to listen to the question.
But then I might not be able to get in on time.
But what happened was you got in early and fucked up the question.
Nah.
Right.
So
So,
I think it's-
let's just for the listener at home. It's Rick,
Correct?
Vyvyan,
Correct?
Mike,
No.
right,
Neil,
Neil, then
Neil, Mike, and then Alexis.
And then Alexi Sell.
Right.
It's-
I
Okay.
probably would have said that if I'd had a chance to listen to the full question, but
Yeah.
we'll
All
never
right.
know.
Okay. What referenced in the audio commentary? What machine is used to create the opening credits that was also used to create a spinning effect in the subsequent
That's
episode?
a big film
Did listen to this.
tech nerdy thing, isn't it? I don't know. It's something like a spectrometer, something like that.
Incorrect.
It's the Cumda or something. It's not that.
The
What is it?
Cumda?
It's
not that.
it's called Quantel.
Quantel. I knew it was
I knew that was a
Q or
very nerdy question. Sorry.
No, I did write it in my notes and I forgot.
Really?
Yeah, the
All right.
Quantel. But that's for them doing the transitions, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah,
Spinny.
they said they used it to create the opening credits as well. But yeah, they use it for the spinny transitions.
Okay, and we didn't talk about the end credits, but I love the traditional nature of them being on the roller.
Oh yeah. With the little shake at the
Yeah.
beginning. Okay, next question. Whose is the first voice we hear in this episode? Which actor? Okay. Wait.
hang on.
Which of you
Sorry.
guys? Which of you guys do you think buzzed in first there?
I mean, I think it was me, but you're the quizmaster.
I think Ange did just pep it. Go on.
Rik Mayall.
Is the wrong answer, Matt?
It's the radio
Okay, but which
player.
which is voiced by?
Christopher Ryan.
No, I think it's Ben Elton.
Oh,
You
dear.
think? I'd have to re-listen to it, but
Is
It's a
this the
great new
first
version of
person
the
who
young
speaks
the
one.
first. But I said the voice of the first person you hear in
So
the
it's
show.
yeah.
It's Ben.
Right.
Well, it's
yeah.
there's a great new version of the young one. That was brilliant.
Yeah,
and it says,
Oh, of course, I didn't even think about that bit.
Okay.
So I was going to be like, are you talking about Cliff Richard then? Okay.
Okay, so you got now.
but that's not the Cliff Richard version,
you
is
got
it?
you got the
So-
character right, but you got the. My question was the actor. So
So no points, I don't
yeah.
Right, so
And-
is it still just one to me?
It is just one to you at the moment. Okay,
Bloody
right.
hell. It's a good job it's just for a bit of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
She says,
Okay,
readying her
next
baseball
question.
bat.
Next question. What does Mike say SPG looks like when he's been fed too often?
It looks like Tesco's when the beans are reduced.
That's exactly it. That's
yeah.
exactly it. Tesco's when the beans are reduced. Correct.
Very
Okay.
good.
Very good. All right. Just mark you down there. Okay.
1-1.
What does Mike say he was going to turn the living room into?
An entertainment complex with a roller disco.
All right, I'll give you that. He said he was going to turn the house into an entertainment complex and the living room into a roller disco.
It's
So, yeah.
interesting that then it's Rick's
Roller
bedroom.
disco,
The
yeah.
second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so it's currently 2-1 to Matt now. Okay, Matt's
How
in the
many
lead.
more have we got?
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All to play for.
Which shop's bag is Alexi Sale holding when he enters the house?
I'm going to guess it's something like Tesco.
Is incorrect. Ange, do you want to try?
I mean, quick save.
I'm sorry, you're both wrong. It's Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's bag.
Okay.
What is the name of the band that Mike introduces? Sorry, Matt did.
9 Below Zero.
Is correct. Yes. Okay, that's Matt. All right. In this episode, Neil cooks a casserole. What country are the lentils from? I'm going to go for Ange.
South Africa.
Is correct.
Right, re-listen to that, guys. I buzzed it first.
I think it's easier for you to buzz on that fucker. Let Eddie get response quick.
Well, we didn't. We mentioned that line in the Rik episode specifically. I thought that's such a funny bit with I think that little South African. It's like you bastard. Do you know what that's about? Actually, yeah, the apartheid people would protest it and not boycott the South African stuff. Yeah, which is something very Rik.
It's very exactly. Yeah.
Right. Final question.
Oh God, is this final?
This is the final question.
So
is it 2-2?
No, it's currently 3-2 to Matt.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
so I hope Matt wins this because I don't have a tie question.
You'll have to think of one on the spot.
All right. What is Vyvyan holding when he crashes in? I think that was Matt.
well,
This is a fix.
a wrapped up, disembodied leg, and also technically he's holding the letter from the council somewhere. That's on his person.
I was just going for leg, but yes, that's correct. Okay, so that's 4-2 to Matt.
Yeah.
Well done. Matt wins the opening episode quiz.
Very well done.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've been studying for about 30 years.
Yeah.
It was
It's
bound to
all
happen.
come down
Anyway,
to this moment.
It's all just a bit of fun. It's all just a bit of
and
fun.
it's all to play for.
Well, I
We all
do
take it in turns, don't we?
Yes, but I do think there should be a prize of a copy of the Talking Bottom book signed by the two losers.
Oh right, okay, fair enough.
Of course, if people do want to get their hands on a copy of that book, it's available on Amazon.
And all three of us losers could sign it.
Yeah. If you want to buy it from us directly, just DM us or email us at 11mathkingparade@gmail.com and we will happily send you, in exchange for money, a signed copy. We've also got our Lamb and Flag tea towels and our Hammersmith Bugle classified advert tea towels available to flog.
They're a lovely bit of objet d'art. They're a lot of fun. We've still got a few, haven't we?
Yeah.
So get in touch with us on our socials. We're on Facebook at Talking Bottom. We're on Twitter or X at Talking Bottom. We're on Insta and we are now also on the TikToks. We've given in to the Gen Z cunts.
And we're on YouTube and Blue Sky.
We've got all the handles Talking Bottom on all of them, I think.
Are we on Threads?
Yeah.
Threads? No.
Okay.
Right.
Not bothered
Fuck
about
it.
that.
Fuck it.
There's
Fuck
too
that
much. There's too
Yeah.
much. But yeah, we're on the TikToks. Please do follow us because we're trying to obviously build a, bit of a following on there. We've got loads of videos and things that are a bit different to what we put out on Facebook and all the rest of it.
Some classic interviews and moments and stuff, and some weird re-edits done by me. Some of them work well and some of them fall very flat.
Watch the Harry Potter computer game where Rik Mayall is voicing Peeves. You'll love it. It's brilliant.
It's funny.
Thank you.
Well, that was episode 1 of Talking Bottom on the Young Ones. Next week, it's oil.
Your episode, Matt.
My episode to do the quiz on. Yeah, it'll be a good one, I'm sure.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
All right.
Looking forward to all of them. It's been really nice to revisit Demolition. Thank you for listening, everyone. Have a good week.
See you next time.
See you next week.